Despite knowing it would cost him overtime pay he desperately needed, he pulled over. His daughter's daycare bills were piling up, but his mother had taught him never to leave someone stranded. The woman barely spoke as he changed her tire, then disappeared into the night without a trace. The next morning, a helicopter landed in his front yard. The pilot held an envelope with his name on it, containing an invitation that would change his life forever. The woman he'd helped wasn't just another stranded driver. She was a billionaire, in disguise. Could a simple act of kindness on a rainy night really turn into a modern-day fairy tale? "Daddy, was it really a helicopter?" Jack Mitchell flipped another pancake, smiling at his daughter's wide-eyed reflection in the scratched kitchen window. Lucy sat at their small table, her legs swinging beneath her chair, the morning sun catching the gold in her brown hair, just like her mother's. "It sure was, sweetheart." He slid the pancake onto a chipped Mickey Mouse plate, complete with a fancy pilot and everything. Lucy clutched her father's day card, the one she'd made in art class last week, close to her chest. The glitter was already falling off, but Jack had called it his most precious possession when she'd given it to him, and she'd been carrying it around ever since. Like in the movies. She carefully set the card beside her plate, making sure no syrup could reach it. Even fancier. Jack checked his watch. They were already running behind. Again, but Lucy's eyes held that spark of wonder he couldn't bear to rush. Black as night, with silver trim, landed right there in Mrs. Henderson's petunias. Is she mad? Furious. He winked, earning a giggle. But sometimes magic makes a mess. The word magic hung in the air between them, and Jack felt the familiar ache in his chest. Sarah had been the one who believed in magic. She'd read Lucy fairy tales every night, doing all the voices, making their small daughter believe that wonderful things could happen even in their tiny corner of the world. 3 years without her, and sometimes Jack still turned to share a joke, still reached for her side of the bed in the morning. But it was the little moments like this, Lucy's excitement over something extraordinary breaking into their ordinary life, that hit the hardest. "Time for school, pumpkin." He helped her gather her things, checking that her homework was actually in her backpack this time. Ms. Rodriguez doesn't accept helicopter watching as an excuse for being late. "But, Daddy," Lucy's lower lip trembled slightly. "What if they come back while I'm at school? What if it's important?" Jack knelt down, straightening her slightly crooked collar. "Tell you what, if any more helicopters land in our yard, you'll be the first person I call. Promise." "Pinky promise?" "Pinky promise." They linked fingers solemnly, and Jack felt that familiar surge of love and protectiveness. Whatever was in that envelope the pilot had handed him, whatever this mysterious woman wanted, Lucy had to come first. Always. The drive to Little Sprout's daycare was quiet. Lucy lost in thoughts. Of helicopters and magic, Jack lost in thoughts of bills and overtime hours. The envelope sat heavy in his jacket pocket, unopened. Part of him wanted to throw it away, return to their simple, predictable life. But Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. The best stories start with something unexpected. "Love you, Daddy." Lucy's goodbye kiss was sticky with syrup, and Jack wouldn't have it any other way. "Love you more, pumpkin." He watched her skip inside, pigtails bouncing, then checked his watch again. If he hit every green light and the train wasn't running, he might make it to work on time. The factory loomed ahead, grey and imposing against the morning sky. Jack's fingers brushed the envelope again as he parked in his usual spot. Whatever this was, opportunity, complication, or maybe even a bit of magic, he'd face it the way Sarah would have wanted, with hope. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The old family photo fell from Jack's locker when he opened it, caught by reflex before it could hit the ground. His mother smiled up at him from beneath the hood of their ancient Chevy, grease smudged across her nose. Teenage Jack, looking both embarrassed and proud beside her. "Late again, Mitchell?" Frank Garcia's voice echoed through the locker room. Better hope Anderson doesn't notice. Missed the train. Jack changed quickly into his work uniform, carefully returning the photo to its spot. His mother had taught him everything he knew about cars, skills that had landed him this job, skills that had let him help that strange woman last night. Heard something way more interesting than your tardiness. Frank leaned against the lockers. Mrs. Henderson's been telling everyone about the helicopter that landed in her flower bed this morning. Know anything about that? The weight of the envelope seemed to double in Jack's pocket. Just another rich person getting lost, probably. In our neighborhood, Frank snorted, rich people don't get lost here, they get their GPS recalculated. The factory floor hummed with its usual rhythm, machines whirring, conveyor belts moving, the steady percussion of metal on metal. But today there was another sound underneath it all. Whispers. Right in his front yard. Some woman. In designer clothes. Sir Mitchell's got a secret millionaire friend. Jack focused on his work, checking each automotive part with the precision his mother had instilled in him. The memory surfaced clearly, her hands guiding his, teaching him how to feel for imperfections. A machine can tell you if something's wrong, she'd said, but your hands can tell you if something's right. Mitchell! Supervisor Anderson's voice cut through his reminiscence. My office, now. The walk across the factory floor felt longer than usual. Every eye followed him, conversations dropping to murmurs as he passed. Anderson sat behind his cluttered desk, reading glasses perched on his nose. Interesting morning. You've had. Sir, about being late. This isn't about your tardiness, though we'll discuss that too. Anderson removed his glasses. Want to explain why Claire Bennett's private helicopter landed on your lawn? Jack's heart skipped. Claire Bennett? Don't play dumb, Mitchell. Everyone knows what her company's helicopters look like. Black with silver trim. That's Bennett Tech's signature. The woman by the road, the expensive suit, the way she'd barely spoken as if trying to disguise her voice. Jack's mind raced. I honestly don't know, sir. I helped someone change a tire last night, but... A tire? Anderson laughed. The richest woman in the state, and you're telling me you changed her tire. I didn't know who she was. Jack straightened in his chair. She needed help. That's all. Anderson studied him for a long moment. You're a good worker, Mitchell. One of my best. Whatever's going on here, don't let it interfere with your... a job. Yes, sir. Back at his station, Jack's hands moved automatically over the parts while his mind churned. Claire Bennett, the tech mogul who'd turned a small software company into a global empire. The woman whose face was on magazine covers, whose name was synonymous with innovation and success. He pulled out his phone during break, searching her name. Article after article appeared, her rise to success, her reputation for eccentric behavior, her famous habit of testing people's character through elaborate scenarios. Quite the fairy tale you've stumbled into. Frank appeared with his lunch. Better be careful. Those kinds of stories don't usually end well for people like us. Jack thought of Lucy's excited face this morning, of Sarah's belief in magic, of his mother's lessons about doing the right thing regardless of reward. Maybe, he said, tucking his phone away. But sometimes the most important part of a story isn't how it ends. It's whether you stay true to yourself along the way. The shift had barely ended when Jack's phone erupted with texts, each one more urgent than the last. Helicopter back. OMG, get home now. Your yard is on the news. He broke every speed limit on the way home, his heart hammering against his ribs. The envelope from this morning still sat unopened in his pocket, growing heavier with each mile. Even from 3 blocks away he could see it. The helicopter's sleek form dominated the modest neighborhood, its rotors slowly spinning down as a crowd gathered behind hastily erected police barriers. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward the evening sky like metal flowers. Mrs. Henderson stood in her bathrobe at the edge of her ruined flower bed, alternating between shouting at reporters and snapping photos with her phone. Jack, finally! They've been asking for you for an hour. The pilot stood ramrod straight beside the helicopter, holding a golden envelope that caught the setting sun. He looked like he'd stepped out of a movie, his uniform pristine, his bearing military precise. "Mr. Mitchell," the pilot's voice carried easily over the murmuring crowd. "Miss Bennett sends her apologies for this morning's abbreviated introduction." Jack felt dozens of phones recording his every move. This is quite a way to follow up. Miss Bennett believes in making an impression. A slight smile crossed the pilot's face. She also believes in rewarding kindness, particularly when that kindness comes with no expectation of return. The golden envelope seemed to pulse with possibility as the pilot held it out. Jack took it, noting the heavy paper, the wax seal bearing what looked like a tire iron crossed with a wrench. "Daddy!" Lucy burst through the police barrier, evading the officer's grasp like a practiced escape artist. She launched herself into Jack's arms, nearly knocking the envelope from his hands. "I told Ms. Rodriguez there was another helicopter, and she didn't believe me, but now everyone believes me. And is it magic, Daddy? Is it really magic?" Jack held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of school crayons and strawberry shampoo. "Let's find out together, Pumpkin." The envelope opened with a satisfying crack of breaking wax. Inside, on paper that felt like silk, elegant script flowed across the page. "Dear Mr. Mitchell, last night you showed me something increasingly rare in our world. Genuine kindness without agenda. You stopped to help not because of who I might be, but because of who you are. I would very much like to thank you properly. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., my car will arrive to bring you and your remarkable daughter to Bennett Tech headquarters. There we can discuss how someone with your character and capabilities might find a more fitting place in this world. The choice, of course, is yours. But as someone once told me, the best stories start with something unexpected. Warmly, Claire Bennett, P.S. Your daughter's school has already been notified of her excused absence tomorrow. Sometimes magic requires a little planning." Lucy bounced in his arms. "What does it say? What does it say?" Jack looked at the crowd. Of neighbors, at the news cameras, at Mrs. Henderson's trampled petunias. Tomorrow would change everything, or nothing. The choice was his. "It says," he hugged Lucy tighter, "that sometimes helping others helps us in ways we never expect. Like in Mommy's stories." "Yeah, Pumpkin, just like in Mommy's stories." The pilot cleared his throat. "Your answer, Mr. Mitchell?" Jack thought. Of Sarah, of her belief in magic and possibility. Of his mother, teaching him that character matters more than circumstances. Of Lucy, who deserved every chance at wonder this world could offer. "Tell Miss Bennett we'll be ready at 9. The pilot's smile widened. "She'll be delighted to hear it." He turned to board the helicopter, then paused. "Oh, and Mr. Mitchell, you might want to wear a suit." As the helicopter lifted off, scattering the last of Mrs. Henderson's petunias. "To the wind," Lucy whispered in his ear. "Daddy, is this the part where the fairy tale really begins?" Jack watched the aircraft disappear into the darkening sky, the golden envelope warm in his hands, his daughter's heart beating quick and hopeful against his chest. "No, sweetheart, I think this is the part where we make our own magic." After tucking Lucy into bed, a process that took 3 stories and multiple assurances that yes, tomorrow was real, Jack sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, an old newspaper clipping spread beside it. The headline caught the dim light, "Bennett Tech Revolution, How One Woman's Vision Changed the Tech Landscape Forever." The article was from 5 years ago, celebrating Claire Bennett's 40th birthday and her company's meteoric rise. The photo showed her at a charity gala, elegant in a black dress, her expression both confident and somehow distant, nothing like the silent woman he'd helped by the roadside. Jack scrolled through article after article, each piece adding to the puzzle. Claire Bennett's unconventional path to success, tech titan's private life, the woman behind the empire, Bennett's bizarre hiring practices revealed. That last one caught his attention. According to former employees, Claire had a reputation for finding talent in unexpected places. A janitor who became her head of operations, a food truck owner who now ran her charitable foundation. People she'd encountered by chance, whose character had impressed her. "It's not about degrees or experience," she'd said in a rare interview. "It's about seeing the potential in people who haven't been given the right opportunity." His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Saw you on the news. Your father would be proud. Call me tomorrow and tell me everything." Jack smiled, remembering his father's favorite saying, "Life's biggest doors often open on the smallest hinges." A flat tire certainly qualified as a small hinge. Lucy's excited voice carried from her bedroom. "Daddy, can I wear my princess dress? Tomorrow? School clothes only, pumpkin. Remember what we talked about?" A dramatic sigh. "Be myself," because that's who she met when she was pretending not to be herself. "That's my girl." Back at his laptop, Jack found himself looking at Bennett Tech's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Tomorrow, he and Lucy would walk through those doors. The thought made his stomach twist. His own reflection in the dark window caught his eye. The suit Sarah had insisted he buy for interviews hung in the closet, untouched for 3 years. Would it still fit? Did it matter? Claire Bennett had met him in his work clothes, with engine grease under his nails. A new article popped up in his feed, posted just hours ago. "Mystery man's act of kindness catches Bennett's eye." There was a grainy photo of him reading the golden envelope, Lucy in his arms. The comment section was already filling up. Total publicity stunt. "She's done this before. Watch this guy end up running the company, LOL. Real life fairy tale. Who stops for a stranded billionaire? This guy's either the luckiest or smartest." Man alive, Jack closed the laptop. The truth was, he wasn't either of those things. He was just a father trying to give his daughter a good life, a son who'd learned about kindness from his parents, a man who still missed his wife's belief in magic and possibility. Tomorrow would change everything, or nothing, but either way, he'd face it as himself. He checked on Lucy one last time. She'd fallen asleep clutching the golden envelope, her face peaceful in the glow of her nightlight. On her wall, the newspaper clipping he'd framed years ago caught his eye. "Local woman software startup shows promise." The photo showed a younger Claire Bennett, standing proudly in front of a small office, her eyes bright with determination and dreams. Maybe that's who he'd helped last night, not the billionaire, but the woman who'd once had her own small beginning, her own dreams to chase. Jack carefully removed the envelope from Lucy's grasp, tucking her favorite stuffed elephant into her arms instead. Tomorrow would come soon enough. For now, let her dream of helicopters and princesses and magic. For now, let them both believe in the possibility of fairy tales coming true. The car that arrived at precisely 9 a.m. was not what Jack expected. No limousine, no flashy luxury vehicle, just a tasteful black sedan with a kind-faced woman driver who introduced herself as Maria. "Ms. Bennett thought you might be more comfortable this way," she explained, helping Lucy with her seatbelt. "She's very good at reading people." The drive into the city felt like crossing into another world. Lucy pressed her face against the window, counting skyscrapers until she ran out of numbers. Jack tugged at his tie, wondering if he should have bought a new suit instead of wearing Sarah's old favorite. Bennett Tech Tower stretched toward the sky like a crystal growing from the earth. In the morning sun, its windows threw rainbow reflections across the plaza, where a massive glass sculpture dominated the space, a Cinderella-style slipper filled with binary code, its base engraved with the company motto, "Technology Dreams." In glass, "Look, Daddy," Lucy pointed at the sculpture. "It's like a real fairy tale." Maria smiled in the rearview mirror. "Ms. Bennett had that installed last year. She says it reminds everyone that technology is just another kind of magic." The lobby felt more like an art gallery than an office building. Screens disguised as paintings displayed ever-changing digital artwork. A holographic receptionist greeted visitors alongside a human one. And there, on a pedestal near the elevator, sat a simple glass paperweight in the shape of a slipper. "Her first product," the human receptionist explained, catching Jack's gaze. A digital organizer shaped like a shoe. Everyone thought she was crazy until it sold 1 million units in its first month. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, except for Lucy's excited whispers about how high they were going. Jack's heart seemed to climb with each floor, pushing into his throat by the time they reached the executive level. "Ready?" he asked Lucy, straightening her collar one last time. "Ready?" She grabbed his hand. "Are you scared, Daddy?" "A little," he admitted. "That's okay. Mommy always said being scared just means you're about to do something brave." The elevator doors opened directly into Claire Bennett's office, a vast space where technology and whimsy collided. Robots rolled across the floor carrying coffee. Cups. A wall-sized screen played a silent feed of butterflies that seemed to occasionally escape into the room through some clever projection trick. And there, standing by a window that overlooked the city, was Claire. She turned and Jack's breath caught. In the daylight, without the rain and darkness, she was both more and less intimidating than he'd imagined. Her suit was impeccable, but her feet were bare. Her posture spoke of power, but her smile held genuine warmth. "Mr. Mitchell," she crossed the room, hand extended, "thank you for coming. And this must be Lucy." Lucy stepped forward with the perfect curtsy she'd practiced all morning. "Thank you for the helicopter, Miss Bennett, and for not getting mad when Daddy was late helping you." Claire laughed. A real laugh, not the polished sound Jack had heard in video interviews. "Well, I'm glad he was late. Sometimes the best things happen when we break our usual patterns." She gestured to a sitting area where a tea service waited. "Shall we?" They settled into chairs that probably cost more than Jack's car. Lucy's eyes went wide at the plate of cookies shaped like tiny computer mice and keyboards. "I hope you'll forgive my rather dramatic approach," Claire began, pouring tea. "I've found that conventional methods often lead to conventional results." "Is that why you pretended to have a flat tire?" Lucy asked around a mouthful of cookie. "Lucy," Jack started, but Claire held up a hand. "No, it's a fair question. Yes, that's exactly why. I wanted to see who would stop to help someone who appeared to be in trouble, even when it wasn't convenient for them." She met Jack's eyes. "Do you know how many cars passed me that night?" Jack shook his head. 47. Some slowed down. Most didn't. You were the only one who stopped. Anyone would have, but they didn't." Claire's voice was soft but firm. "That's what makes you different, Mr. Mitchell. That's what makes you interesting." A robot rolled up with fresh cookies. Lucy giggled as it made a small bow before departing. "Now," Claire leaned forward, her expression turning serious, "let's talk about why you're really here." Claire slid a leather portfolio across the glass coffee table. The contract inside was printed on cream-colored paper, the Bennett Tech logo embossed in silver at the top. "Head of Vehicle Innovation Division," Jack read aloud, his voice barely a whisper. The salary figure made his hands shake. "I've been looking for someone to lead our new automotive technology department," Claire explained, watching him carefully. "Someone who understands both the mechanical and human elements, someone who sees potential where others see problems." Lucy had wandered to the window, chattering with a small robot that projected dancing lights onto the floor. Her reflection floated over the city like a ghost. "Miss Bennett, I check parts for quality control. I'm not an engineer. Neither was I when I started." Claire gestured to the glass slipper paperweight. "I was a receptionist with an idea. What matters isn't where you start, Mr. Mitchell. It's how you approach the journey." She stood, walking to a wall that transformed into a screen at her touch. Images appeared, blueprints for hybrid engines, designs for self-repairing cars, sketches of vehicles that looked like they belonged in science fiction. "Your supervisor says you've submitted 17 suggestions for improving the manufacturing process. 16 of them were implemented. The last one," she smiled, "the last one was too advanced for your current facility." Jack remembered that idea, a way to use AI to predict wear patterns in engine parts. The supervisor had said it was too complicated, too expensive, too much. "You see possibilities, Mr. Mitchell. You understand machines in a way that reminds me of myself at your age. But more importantly," She glanced at Lucy. You understand people. I can't just leave my job. My daughter's school, our home, all taken care of. Claire touched the contract. Full relocation assistance. Lucy's. Enrollment in Brightwood Academy. Their STEM program is unmatched. A home in a safe neighborhood close to both the office and her school. Jack's throat tightened. Brightwood Academy. Sarah had dreamed of sending Lucy there someday. Why me? The question came out rougher than he intended. Really? Why? Claire was quiet for a moment, watching Lucy play. When I was starting out, someone took a chance on me. A stranger who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. They changed my life with that opportunity. She turned back to Jack. I believe we have a responsibility to pass on the kindness we've received. And if I fail, then you fail trying something extraordinary rather than succeeding at something safe. She sat back down, her expression softening. Your daughter already believes in magic, Mr. Mitchell. Shouldn't she also believe in the power of taking chances? Lucy skipped back to them, her eyes bright. Daddy, the robot knows how to dance. Can we get one? Jack pulled her into his lap, breathing in her familiar scent, feeling the weight of the moment. I don't know, Pumpkin. There's a lot we need to think about. The position is yours if you want it, Claire said gently. Take the weekend. Discuss it with your family. The contract will be here on Monday. As if on cue, Maria appeared at the elevator. Time to go. Lucy hugged Claire impulsively. Thank you for the magic cookies. You're very welcome, Lucy. Claire's professional mask slipped for a moment, revealing something softer underneath. You know, I have a feeling you're going to bring some magic of your own to this place. In the elevator, Lucy bounced on her toes. Can we, Daddy? Can we, please? Jack touched the contract in his pocket. Sarah would have said yes in a heartbeat. His mother would tell him to be practical, to think it through. And his father would say that life's biggest doors often open on the smallest hinges. We'll see, Pumpkin, he said, holding her hand as they walked through the lobby. We'll see. But as they passed the glass slipper sculpture, catching their reflection in its crystalline surface, father and daughter on the edge of something new, Jack had a feeling he already knew his answer. The house keys felt foreign in Jack's hand. Too shiny, too new, too much like they belonged to someone else's life. The realtor had called it a modest executive home, but to Jack and Lucy, standing in the empty living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and built-in bookshelves, it felt like a palace. Daddy, Lucy's voice echoed from upstairs. My room has a window seat, just like in my books. Jack smiled, remembering how Sarah used to read to Lucy in their old apartment, pretending. The worn ottoman was a window seat in a castle. Now their daughter had the real thing. The movers will be here in an hour, he called back, then whispered to himself, not that we have enough to fill half these rooms. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Proud of you, honey. Your father always said you were meant for bigger things. Call me once you're settled. The morning sun painted patterns on the hardwood floors, and Jack could see their reflection in the windows. A father and daughter on the brink of something new, still looking a little lost in all this space. Can I paint my room purple? Lucy appeared at the top of the stairs, already wearing her new Brightwood Academy uniform. She'd insisted on putting it on the moment it arrived. We'll see about the purple. Jack checked his watch. Ready for your first day? Lucy's excitement faltered slightly. What if the other kids don't like me? Then they're missing out on knowing the bravest, kindest girl in the world. He straightened her tie, the same way Sarah used to straighten his. Remember what Mom always said? Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. Lucy squared her shoulders. And being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. The drive to Brightwood Academy was a world, away from their old commute. Gone were the industrial warehouses and tired strip malls, replaced by manicured lawns and stately buildings. Lucy pressed her face against the window, counting fountains instead of factories. Will you be okay at your new job? She asked suddenly. Without any friends? Jack thought of his old co-workers, of Frank's farewell party where everyone had signed a card with their favorite Mitchell moments. He'd left it in his desk drawer. Too many memories to bring into this new chapter. I'll be fine, Pumpkin. Sometimes we have to leave our comfort zone to find new kinds of comfortable. Brightwood Academy rose before them like something from a movie set, all ivy-covered brick and gleaming windows. Children in matching uniforms streamed through its gates, carrying tablets instead of textbooks. Ms. Bennett's daughter went here, Lucy announced proudly, adjusting her backpack. Maria told me. Is that right? Jack filed away this piece of information about their mysterious benefactor. She said Ms. Bennett donated the whole science building because she wanted kids like me to learn about making magic with technology. A bell chimed softly across the campus. Lucy hugged him tight, smelling of new clothes and nervous excitement. Love you, Daddy. Love you more, Pumpkin. He watched her walk through those impressive gates, her ponytail swinging with each step, until she disappeared into the flow of students. She looked back only once, giving him a brave little wave. The drive to Bennett Tech felt surreal. The security guard greeted him by name, handing him an access card with his photo already printed on it. His assigned parking space had a small placard, J. Mitchell, Head of Vehicle Innovation. In his new office, high above the city, he found a single item on his otherwise empty desk, a framed photograph he'd never seen before. It showed him kneeling by Claire's car that rainy night, focused entirely on changing her tire. The inscription beneath it read, "Sometimes the greatest innovations start with the simplest act of kindness." Jack set the photo beside his computer, next to the old picture of his mother teaching him about engines, past and present, side by side, a reminder of where he came from, and perhaps a glimpse of where he was going. Sometimes the biggest adventures start with a single step, or in his case, a single turn of a wrench. The magazine lay open on Jack's desk, its glossy pages reflecting the morning light. From help desk to corner office, Claire Bennett's untold story blazed across the top, accompanied by a photo he'd never seen before. A much younger Claire, in a worn waitress uniform, serving coffee at what looked like an all-night diner. Quite the read, isn't it? Jack looked up to find Thomas Chen, head of software development, leaning against his doorframe. In the month since Jack had started, Thomas had become something of a mentor, helping him navigate the complex waters of corporate life. Did you know about this? Jack held up the magazine, that she worked 3 jobs while building her first prototype. Thomas smiled. There's a lot people don't know about Claire Bennett, like how she still visits that diner every year on the anniversary of when she sold her first program, leaves a $10,000 tip each time. Jack studied the article more closely. Claire had been living in her car when she got her first tech job, a help desk position at a small software company. She'd taught herself coding during night shifts at the diner, using borrowed books and free internet at the public library. She has a pattern, you know. Thomas settled into one of the visitor chairs. Finding people like you. People with potential who just need a chance. People keep saying that, but Maria was her Uber driver, Thomas interrupted. Now she runs corporate transportation. The head of HR used to be a janitor here. And me, he laughed. I was fixing computers in my garage when she found me. Before Jack could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Lucy. Got an A+ on my robotics project. Miss Bennett came to watch our presentations. She visits the school, Jack asked, surprised. Every week, teaches a coding class for the younger kids. Thomas stood, straightening his jacket. The board hates it, of course. Says it's beneath her position. Why does she do it? Same reason she staged a flat tire, to find someone honest enough to stop and help. Thomas headed for the door, then paused. By the way, the quarterly board meeting is next week. They'll want to see your progress on the self-diagnosing engine project. Jack's stomach tightened. The project was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. But every time he doubted himself, he remembered Claire's words. Sometimes the greatest innovations start with the simplest act of kindness. Later that afternoon, passing the break room, He overheard two executives talking. Another charity case, just like the others. Board's getting tired of her rescue projects. Did you see his background? Quality control at a parts factory? Give him 6 months. They never last. Jack's hands clenched, but he kept walking. Back in his office, he stared at the photo of that rainy night, then at his mother teaching him about engines. Below his latest project designs lay the magazine, Claire's younger self staring out with determined eyes. His computer pinged with an email from Claire. Jack heard great things about Lucy's robotics presentation. She has your eye for innovation. Speaking of which, how's the engine project coming? I'd love to see it when you have a moment. See, he looked at his prototype sketches, ideas that had been dismissed as too complicated at his old job. But here, in this place of dreams and daring, might just work. Opening his drawer, he pulled out the card his former co-workers had given him. Among the signatures and jokes, Frank had written, "Don't forget where you came from, but don't let it hold you back either." Jack picked up his tablet and headed for the elevator. It was time to show Claire what someone from a parts factory could really do. As he waited for the elevator, he caught his reflection in the polished doors. He stood straighter now, his old work clothes replaced by tailored suits, but his hands still bore the calluses of someone who understood machines, who knew that sometimes the most elegant solutions came from the simplest insights. The doors opened, and he stepped inside. Going up, Lucy twirled in front of the mirror, her new dress floating around her like a purple cloud. The receipt still lay on Jack's dresser. A designer gown that cost more than a month's rent at their old apartment, delivered that morning with a note. From Claire, "Every princess needs the perfect dress for her first ball. Do I look like Mommy?" Lucy asked, touching the pearl necklace Sarah had left her. "In the pictures from your wedding?" Jack's throat tightened. "Even prettier, pumpkin. Mom would have loved to see you like this." The Bennett Tech annual charity gala transformed the company's ground floor into something from a dream. The glass slipper sculpture now sprouted a fountain of light, its binary code casting ever-changing patterns across the marble floors. Strings of floating orbs drifted through the air, each one containing a holographic display of the company's charitable projects around the world. "Mr. Mitchell," Thomas appeared beside them, champagne in hand. "And Miss Lucy, don't you look lovely?" Lucy executed a perfect curtsy just as she'd practiced. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. Is it true the robots are serving dinner? Even better, they're dancing." He pointed to where several of the company's prototype androids waltzed with guests, their movements perfectly synchronized to the orchestra. "Why don't you go watch? Your father and I need to talk business for a moment." Once Lucy was safely distracted by the mechanical dancers, Thomas's expression turned serious. "The board members are all here tonight. They've been asking questions about your project. The prototype's nearly ready." "It's not about the prototype." Thomas sipped his champagne. "They're worried about optics. A former factory worker leading our most ambitious division. They think Claire's letting her heart rule her head." Before Jack could respond, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Claire had arrived. She moved through the room like light on water, greeting guests with practiced ease. Her dress was simple but elegant, its deep blue fabric seeming to absorb and reflect the floating lights. When she spotted Lucy watching the dancing robots, her professional smile softened into something real. "Would you care to dance?" she asked, kneeling to Lucy's level. "I designed these robots to teach me when I was learning. They're very patient partners." Lucy's eyes widened. "You didn't know how to dance." "I grew up in a place where dancing wasn't a priority." Claire stood, offering her hand. "Sometimes the things that scare us most turn out to be the most wonderful." Jack watched his daughter take her first dance lesson from a robot and a billionaire, her laughter rising above the orchestra. Around them he caught snippets of conversation. "Such a soft spot for strays. Board's patience won't last forever. Reminds me of her before the money. Don't listen to them." Claire's voice startled him. She'd appeared at his side without a sound. "They said the same things about me once. Were they right?" About my chances of success? No, she smiled. About me changing the world with a shoe-shaped computer? Absolutely. They watched Lucy twirl between the robot dancers, her dress catching the light like captured stars. She has Sarah's grace, Claire said softly. Jack turned to her, surprised. How did you— I do my research, Jack. I know about the accident, about how you've raised her alone, about the 3 jobs you worked to keep her in dance classes because Sarah loved dance. Is that why you chose me? Because you felt sorry for us? No, Claire met his eyes. I chose you because when I was broken down by the side of the road, you didn't see a charity case. You saw someone who needed help, period. She touched his arm lightly. The world has enough people looking for angles, Jack. It needs more people looking for ways to help. The orchestra shifted to a slower song. Around them, the floating orbs dimmed, creating islands of intimate light throughout the room. Would you care to dance? Claire asked. The robots are excellent teachers, but I've learned to prefer human partners. Jack thought of Sarah, of their last dance together. He thought of all the changes these past months had brought. The new home, the new job, the new life blooming from one simple act of kindness. I'd like that, he said, taking her hand. As they moved onto the dance floor, Lucy caught his eye and beamed. In that moment, surrounded by light and music and possibility, Jack realized that sometimes fairy tales don't just happen. Sometimes they're built, one brave choice at a time. The anonymous letter arrived in a plain white envelope, slipped under Jack's office door sometime during lunch. No signature, no letterhead, just a warning, typed in stark black letters. Not everyone appreciates a fairy tale romance. The board meets Friday. Be prepared. Jack stared at the paper, his coffee growing cold beside him. The gala had been 3 days ago, and already the whispers had grown into something darker. His team's sidelong glances, the sudden cancellation of his project update meeting, the way conversations stopped when he entered the break room. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Dinner tonight? Lucy can show me her robotics project. Before he could respond, Thomas burst into his office. Have you seen the headlines? He turned his tablet toward Jack. The tech blogs were running wild. Bennett Tech CEO's new romance raises eyebrows. From factory floor to executive floor. The real story. Sources question Mitchell's rapid rise. The board's concerned, Thomas said, settling into his usual chair. Your project review has been moved up to tomorrow. They can't just— They can. They're worried you're a distraction. That Claire's letting personal feelings cloud her judgment. He leaned forward, like the self-diagnosing engine. They're saying she only approved it because of your relationship. Jack thought of the prototype in the lab downstairs, of the countless hours his team had poured into it, of Claire's face when he'd first explained the concept, her excitement purely professional, purely focused on innovation. His computer pinged with an email from Lucy's school. Mr. Mitchell, we're concerned about recent media attention affecting Lucy's school experience. Perhaps we should discuss alternative arrangements. The words blurred before his eyes. He'd thought he was protecting Lucy from all this, but now— Jack, Thomas's voice softened. No one doubts your abilities. The prototype works. The team respects you. But perception matters in this world. So what am I supposed to do? Pretend there's nothing between Claire and me? Go back to quality control? No! You're supposed to fight! Thomas stood, straightening his jacket. Show them why she chose you, why you belong here. After Thomas left, Jack read the anonymous letter again. Below his keyboard lay the latest project specs. Innovations that could revolutionize vehicle maintenance, make cars safer, more efficient, more accessible to everyone. His phone buzzed again. Lucy, this time. Madison's dad says you're only dating Miss Bennett for money. I told him he's wrong. You're dating her because she sees magic like Mommy did, right? Jack's throat tightened. Out his window he could see the city spreading beneath him, so different from the factory views he'd known all his life. In his reflection, he barely recognized himself in the tailored suit and designer shoes. But his hands, His hands were still the hands of a mechanic, still capable of feeling what was wrong with an engine, of fixing what others thought was broken. The anonymous letter crumpled in his fist. On his desk, the photo of that rainy night seemed to glow in the afternoon light, a reminder of why he was really here. Not because of Claire's money or position, but because he'd stopped to help someone in need, because he'd been himself, even when it wasn't convenient. His phone buzzed one final time. Claire again. "They're wrong about us. About you. Show them why." Jack smoothed out the letter, pinned it to his wall next to his mother's photo. A reminder that not all paths are smooth, but that doesn't make them wrong. He opened his project of files and began to prepare. Tomorrow he would show the board exactly what a factory worker could do when given a chance. And then, maybe, he'd show them something else, that sometimes the most powerful innovation isn't in technology at all. Sometimes it's in having the courage to be exactly who you are, regardless of who doubts you. Claire's diary lay open on her desk, its pages filled with flowing handwriting that seemed too personal, too intimate for the sleek corporate office surrounding them. Jack stood by the window, processing what she'd just told him. So none of it was an accident, he said finally. The flat tire, the location, the timing. "I'd been watching you for months." Claire's voice was soft but steady. "Ever since you submitted that AI diagnostic system to your factory's suggestion box. But why the deception? Why not just offer me the job? Because I needed to know who you really were." She touched the diary gently. 20 years ago, I was living in my car, coding at night, dreaming of changing the world. Nobody would give me a chance until someone did. She turned to a specific page, reading, "Today, a stranger changed my life. My car broke down outside his diner at 2 a.m. Instead of calling the police, he let me stay until morning, gave me coffee, food, and most importantly, access to his computer to finish my program. Said sometimes people just need someone to believe in them." Jack sat down heavily. "The diner owner. James Chen, Thomas's father." Claire smiled. "He died before I could pay him back. So I promised myself I'd pay it forward instead. Find others who just needed someone to believe in them. Like Maria and the others. Yes, but finding the right people, that was the challenge. Success changes you, Jack. Makes you cynical, makes you doubt people's motives." She stood walking to the glass slipper sculpture visible from her window. "So I developed a system. Create situations where people could show their true character. The flat tire, among others. I've broken down in 30 different locations over the years, dropped wallets, staged minor emergencies." She turned back to him. "Most people either ignore you or help because they recognize you. You were the first person who helped simply because someone needed help." Jack thought of Lucy's words. "You're dating her because she sees magic like Mommy did." "The board meeting tomorrow," he said. "They think I'm a distraction, a liability." "The board thinks a lot of things." Claire picked up her diary. "They thought a shoe-shaped computer was ridiculous. They thought hiring a janitor as head of operations was foolish. They thought letting a former waitress run the charitable foundation was a mistake." She smiled. "They're very good at thinking things. I'm very good at proving them wrong. But this is different. This is personal. Everything worth doing is personal, Jack." She opened the diary to another page. "The night we met, I wrote this. Found someone who reminds me of myself before the money, the power, the pressure to be perfect. Someone who sees what needs fixing and simply fixes it, whether it's a flat tire or a broken dream." She handed him the diary. "Read it, all of it. Then decide if you want to stay, not just at the company, but in my life. In our story." Jack looked down at the diary in his hands. The first page was dated 20 years ago, the handwriting less refined, but full of the same determination he saw in Claire every day. "Lucy asked me tonight if we were dating because you see magic like Sarah did," he said quietly. "What did you tell her?" "I haven't answered yet. I wanted to be sure of the truth first." Claire touched his hand gently. "The truth is, I staged A flat tire hoping to find someone with integrity and intelligence. Instead, I found something far rarer. Someone who still believes in magic, but knows it takes work to make it real. Through the window, they could see Lucy in the company's childcare center, teaching younger kids how to program the dancing robots. Her face shone with the same passion Jack saw in Claire when she talked about changing the world. "The board meets at 9, Claire said. "Your prototype presentation is first. Show them what you've built, then let me show them what I've seen in you all along." "And what's that?" "Someone worth breaking down on the side of the road for," she smiled. "Someone worth building a future with." Jack looked at the diary, at Lucy below, at the woman who had orchestrated a fairy tale to find something real. Tomorrow would change everything again. But this time he was ready. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we choose to write ourselves. The viral post appeared on every social platform simultaneously. A security camera photo of Jack and Claire dancing at the gala, her head resting on his shoulder, both lost in their own world. The caption read, "From Cinderella's story to corporate. Scandal, the real cost of Bennett Tech's latest romance." Jack's phone hadn't stopped buzzing since morning. News vans clogged the street outside his house. Lucy's school had called. Reporters were trying to interview students about the modern fairy tale family. "They're saying you planned it all," Thomas said, pacing Jack's office. "That you orchestrated the breakdown, knew who she was, played her for a fool." "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is, but perception is reality in this world." Thomas handed him his tablet. "It gets worse." The financial news sites were running with the story. Bennett Tech stock dips amid romance rumors. Investors question CEO's judgment. Board called to emergency session. Lucy's text notification popped up. "Everyone at school is sharing videos about us. Madison says we're trending." "What does that mean, Daddy?" Jack's chest tightened. He'd faced doubt before, weathered criticism, but this was different. This wasn't just about him anymore. His office door opened and Maria slipped in, looking worried. "Claire needs you both in the conference room." Now, they found Claire standing. At the window, her usual composure slightly frayed. On the massive screen behind her, social media feeds scrolled endlessly, each one dissecting their relationship, their backgrounds, their every move. "They found Sarah's obituary," she said without turning. "They're painting me as a predator, targeting a vulnerable widower and his daughter for some kind of publicity stunt." "Claire, don't." She held up a hand. "We knew this might happen. She finally faced them. "I didn't expect them to drag Lucy into it." On her desk, her phone showed a message from the board chairman. "Emergency meeting moved up 3 p.m. Damage control required." "They want me to issue a statement," Claire said. "Distance myself from the situation. Say it was all a misunderstanding." "And if you don't, then they'll do it for me." She smiled grimly. 20 years building this company, and they think they can reduce it all to a scandal. Jack's phone buzzed again. His mother. "Saw you on the news. Remember what your father said about storms?" He did. The strongest trees bend with the wind, but never break. A notification chimed on the conference room screen. Someone had leaked Claire's diary entries to a tech blog, the most private moments of their story laid bare for public consumption, twisted into something tawdry and calculated. "I'm so sorry," Claire whispered. "I never meant for this to hurt you, to hurt Lucy." Before Jack could respond, Thomas's tablet lit up with a new alert. The hashtag Bennett Tech Love Story was trending, but not in the way they expected. Former employees were coming forward, sharing their own stories of how Claire had given them chances when no one else would. Maria's voice crackled over the intercom. "Claire, you need to see this." The screen switched to a live feed from outside. Hundreds of Bennett Tech employees had gathered in the plaza, many holding signs. "Real innovation starts with real people. Love stock prices. Trust Claire's judgment." And there, in the front, stood Lucy with her robotics class, their small robots holding up a banner. "Sometimes magic takes courage." Claire pressed a hand to the window, her eyes shining. They're choosing to believe in us. Jack moved beside her, taking her hand. Maybe it's time we did the same. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing past all the chaos to something essential. The board meeting can wait. He squeezed her hand. First, let's go tell our story. The real one, not their version. Together they watched Lucy programming her robot to wave at the crowd, her face bright with determination and joy. Whatever came next, they would face it, as they had everything else, with honesty, courage, and just a touch of magic. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply standing in your truth, letting the storm rage around you while your roots grow deeper. The resignation letter sat unsigned on Jack's desk, each word carefully chosen to protect Claire and the company. His finger hovered over the keyboard, cursor blinking at the signature line. One click, and he could end this. Spare everyone the mess their fairy tale had become. You're really going to let them win? He looked up to find Maria in his doorway, arms crossed. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do, he said, but the words felt hollow. Funny. Maria settled into the visitor's chair. That's not what you told me when the board questioned my promotion. What was it you said? The only way to change their minds is to prove them wrong. Before Jack could respond, his computer chimed with an urgent message. The board had moved the meeting up again to 1 hour from now. They're trying to force our hands, Maria said. Classic power play. Jack's phone lit up with a text from Claire. Don't you dare sign that letter. Meet me in the lab. He found her in the prototype bay, surrounded by holographic displays of his self-diagnosing engine design. She'd shed her usual business attire for jeans and a Bennett Tech hoodie, the same outfit she wore in that old magazine photo from her coding days. Remember what you told Lucy about her first robotics competition? Claire didn't look up from the displays. That being scared just means you're about to do something brave? This is different. Is it? She swept her hand through a hologram, enlarging a particular component. Look at this. Really look. You designed an AI system that doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. It learns, adapts, grows stronger with every challenge. Finally, she met his eyes. Sound familiar? Jack studied the engine schematic, his team's work, his vision, but shaped by everything he'd learned here, by everyone who'd believed in him. The board has their lawyers ready, he said quietly. They'll paint this as a scandal, a distraction from the company's mission. Let them try. Claire's voice held steel beneath the silk. I built this company on second chances and impossible dreams. They don't get to reduce that to a publicity problem. His phone buzzed. Lucy sending a photo of her latest robotics project. She'd programmed it to display team magic in floating lights. Did I ever tell you about my father? Claire asked suddenly. Jack shook his head. He left when I was 12, said dreamers like Mom and me would never amount to anything. She touched the engine hologram gently. Every success, every innovation, every person I've helped, it's been my way of proving him wrong, of showing that dreams matter, that dreamers matter. The prototype bay door opened and Thomas entered, followed by what looked like half the engineering department. Your team has something to say, he announced. One by one, they stepped forward. The junior engineer whose daughter's medical bills Claire had quietly paid, the security guard whose night classes she'd funded, the custodian she'd promoted to facilities manager because he kept suggesting building improvements. We're with you, they said in different ways. Both of you. Jack's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from his mother. Your father always said life's biggest doors often open on the smallest hinges. Maybe it's time to build your own door. He looked at the resignation letter on his tablet, then at the engine design floating before them, at Claire standing proud in her hoodie and determination, at all the faces watching, waiting, believing. Slowly, deliberately, he deleted the resignation letter. The board wants proof this isn't a distraction. He stepped into the hologram, adjusting calculations with practiced ease. Let's give them something they can't ignore. Claire's eyes lit with understanding. The prototype. It's ready. He met her gaze. "We're ready." She smiled, that real smile that had nothing to do with corporate politics and everything to do with changing the world. "Then let's go make some magic." The boardroom waited above them, full of people who thought they knew how this story would end, but standing there in the lab, surrounded by dreamers and believers and impossible successes, Jack remembered something else Sarah used to say. The best fairy tales aren't about the magic that happens to you. They're about the magic you choose to make. The board meeting minutes would later record it as an unprecedented demonstration of technological innovation and corporate leadership. But as Jack and Claire stood before the massive oak doors, it felt more like standing on the edge of a cliff. "Ready?" Claire squeezed his hand. "No." He smiled. "Let's do it anyway." The boardroom fell silent as they entered. 12 stern faces watched from the polished table, legal documents stacked neatly before them. The chairman, Edward Pierce, didn't bother to hide his disapproval. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Mitchell, I see you've chosen to make this difficult." "Actually," Claire said, setting up her tablet, "we've chosen to make this revolutionary." The holographic display sprang to life, filling the room with a 3-dimensional model of Jack's engine. But this wasn't the version the board had seen before. This was something more. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jack began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "you're looking at the future of vehicle maintenance. An AI system that doesn't just diagnose problems, it prevents them. It learns, adapts, and evolves with each vehicle it protects." He manipulated the display, showing simulation after simulation. The board members leaned forward despite themselves. Initial testing shows a 78% reduction in major mechanical failures. Projected cost savings for fleet operators alone would exceed $1 billion annually. Pierce shuffled his papers. "Impressive, but nothing." Claire stepped forward. "This is why I chose him. This is why I choose all of them, because they see possibilities where others see problems." She gestured, and the display changed to show faces. Maria, Thomas, all the others she'd given chances to over the years. Their success stories floated beside them in glowing text. "You think my personal life is affecting my judgment?" Claire's voice carried to every corner of the room. "My judgment is why this company leads the industry in innovation. My judgment is why our charitable foundation has changed thousands of lives. My judgment is why we're not just another soulless tech corporation. The shareholders," Pierce began, "are showing overwhelming support." Thomas entered, tablet in hand. "Social media sentiment is 82% positive. Our employees' public stand has generated more positive press than our last 3 product launches combined. And that video of Lucy's robotics class? 12 million views and counting. This isn't about shareholders," Claire continued. "This is about who we are as a company, as people." She met each board member's eyes in turn. "I built Bennett Tech on second chances and impossible dreams. If you want to replace me for falling in love with someone who embodies everything this company stands for, then I suggest you read your contracts very carefully." The room fell silent. Jack could almost see the calculations running behind each board member's eyes, weighing scandal against innovation, tradition against progress, fear against possibility. Pierce cleared his throat. "The engine. When can it go into production?" 3 months, Jack said. "Sooner, with full board support." Another silence. Then, from the far end of the table, a slow clap. Dr. Sarah Chen, Thomas's aunt and the longest-serving board member, stood up. 20 years ago, she said, I watched a young woman in a waitress uniform pitch an idea that everyone called impossible. Today I'm watching history repeat itself." She smiled at Claire. "I vote we give love a chance, again." One by one, the other board members nodded. Pierce looked down at his papers, then sighed. "The board withdraws its concerns," he said formally. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Mitchell, try to keep the fairy tale out of the press." Claire's laugh was pure joy. No promises. Outside the boardroom, their team waited. Maria saw their faces and started crying. Thomas hugged his aunt. Through the window, they could see the plaza still full of supporters. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. "Did we win?" He looked at Claire, who was already drafting a company-wide message of thanks, at Thomas showing his aunt the engine specs, at Maria organizing an impromptu celebration. "Yes," he typed back. "We all did." Claire caught his eye and smiled. That real smile that had first appeared on a rainy night beside a supposedly broken-down car. Sometimes the best victories aren't just about proving others wrong. They're about proving yourself right. The tire iron hung in a custom-made frame on Claire's office wall, mounted against black velvet with a small plaque that read, "Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness change everything." She looked at it every morning, remembering that rainy night that had changed both their lives, which was exactly why Jack chose today to borrow it. "Everything's ready," Lucy whispered into her walkie-talkie, a prop she'd insisted was essential for Operation Happily Ever After. She stood lookout in the lobby, while Jack carefully removed the tire iron from its frame. "Roger that, Command Center." He grinned at her eye roll. "Is our target en route?" Maria just texted. "They're 5 minutes away." The plan had taken weeks to organize, involving most of the company and more than a few conspirators from their past. Even Mrs. Henderson had helped, though she'd extracted a promise to replace her petunias with the expensive kind this time. Jack touched his pocket, feeling the small velvet box inside. The ring had been his mother's suggestion, a simple band embedded with a tiny computer chip that, when scanned, displayed their entire story in holographic form. "Target approaching!" Lucy's excited whisper crackled through the walkie-talkie. "Operation Fairy Tale is go." Jack hurried to his position, the exact spot on the road where he'd first stopped to help Claire. The company's autonomous vehicles lined the street, their headlights creating a path of light in the gathering dusk. Right on cue, Claire's car appeared, Maria at the wheel. It slowed, then stopped precisely where it had that night. The flat tire signal flashed on the dashboard, Thomas's contribution to the plan. "What's going on?" Claire's voice carried through the evening air as she stepped out. Then she saw Jack, standing in the rain, courtesy of carefully programmed drones, holding the familiar tire iron. "Need some help?" he asked, echoing their first conversation. Claire's hand flew to her mouth as understanding dawned. Behind her, Lucy gave him a thumbs up from her hiding spot. "You know," Jack continued, moving closer, "some people say I was crazy to stop that night, that I should have driven past like everyone else. 47 everyone else's," Claire whispered. "But my mother taught me that kindness matters. Sarah taught me that magic is real. And you," he knelt, but not to change a tire this time. "You taught me that sometimes fairy tales aren't about waiting for rescue. They're about being brave enough to write your own story." The rain-making drones created a perfect circle of gentle drops around them, catching the light like falling stars. Lucy emerged from her hiding place, carrying a small robot that projected their story onto the falling water. Every moment from that first meeting to now. "Claire Bennett," Jack held up the ring, its embedded chip glowing softly. "Will you help me write the next chapter?" Claire looked at the tire iron in his hand, the ring catching the light, Lucy bouncing with excitement nearby. At all the faces watching from windows and doorways, their chosen family, the people who had believed in them both. "You know," she said, wiping happy tears, "most people just get down on one knee. Since when have we done anything like most people?" Her laugh was pure joy, the real laugh he'd fallen in love with. "Yes, of course, yes." As they kissed, Lucy activated the final surprise. Every autonomous vehicle's lights turned skyward, creating a canopy of light above them. The tire iron found its way back to the frame, but with a new plaque. Sometimes a flat tire leads to the perfect fit. Later, at the impromptu celebration in the plaza, Claire whispered, "You know the board's going to have opinions about this, too." Jack smiled, watching Lucy teach her robot to throw holographic rice. "Let them. Some things are worth any storm, like stopping to help a stranger in the rain. Like believing in magic," he said, pulling her close. even when it comes. Disguised as a flat tire, the wedding invitation caused quite a stir in the tech world. Instead of traditional paper, each guest received a small holographic projector disguised as a wrench. When activated, it displayed their story in miniature. A tiny Jack helping a tiny Claire with a tire, their figures dancing through important moments before finally forming the wedding details in gleaming script. "Too much?" Claire asked, watching Lucy demonstrate it for the 100th time. "It's perfect," Jack said. "Though Mrs. Henderson is still mad we didn't go with her suggestion of live doves." They'd chosen to hold the ceremony in the Bennett Tech Plaza, transforming the space into a blend of technology and tradition. The glass slipper sculpture now sprouted a cascade of real flowers, while holographic butterflies flitted between the blooms. Robot attendants guided guests to their seats, each one programmed with a unique story about the couple. Lucy took her maid of honor duties seriously, coordinating with Maria to ensure everything was perfect. She'd even programmed her robotics project to be the ring bearer, though it took some convincing to get the board to approve the insurance. "Daddy." She found Jack in his office, staring at the photo of that rainy night. "Mom would be really happy, you know." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "You think so? She always said real love stories aren't about perfect people. They're about perfect timing." Lucy straightened his tie, the same way Sarah used to, like a princess breaking down right when a mechanic drives past. The media had dubbed it the tech world's wedding of the year, but they'd kept the guest list intimate. Thomas's aunt flew in from Hong Kong. Jack's mother cried through every planning session. Even Frank and the old factory crew got invitations, delivered by helicopter naturally. Claire insisted on handling one detail personally, a memorial corner where photos of Sarah and Jack's father shared space with Claire's mother and Thomas's father from the diner. "Our story wouldn't exist without them," she said simply. The morning of the wedding, Jack found a package on his desk. Inside was a framed news clipping he'd never seen before. "Local woman's dream changes lives. Claire Bennett's journey, from diner to tech empire." The accompanying note read, "Some stories are too good not to share. Your friends at the Times." Below the story was a photo of Claire at her old diner, and there in the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was Jack's father, teaching a young Sarah how to work the coffee machine during her summer job. "Did you know," he asked Claire later, showing her the photo, "about Sarah working at the diner? Not until Thomas's aunt mentioned it last week." She touched the image gently. "Apparently, she and your father used to talk about how their kids would do amazing things someday." Lucy burst in before Jack could respond. "The robots are ready for the final rehearsal, and Mrs. Henderson says if we don't do it now, she's releasing the doves anyway." The plaza had never looked more magical. Strings of lights created a canopy of stars above the guest seats. The holographic butterflies had been joined by floating flowers that transformed into doves, a compromise with Mrs. Henderson. Each place setting included a small robot that projected the guest's favorite memory of the couple. "Getting nervous?" Thomas asked, adjusting Jack's boutonniere. "About marrying Claire?" "No." Jack watched his bride-to-be, showing Lucy how to make the butterfly projections change color. "About the robot ring-bearer, doing a backflip during the ceremony? Definitely. Some things are worth the risk," Thomas smiled, "like stopping to help a stranger change a tire." As the sun set on their rehearsal, casting long shadows through the glass slipper sculpture, Jack looked at his soon-to-be wife and daughter playing with their technological butterflies, at the community of believers and dreamers who had helped write their story, at the photos of those who had shaped their paths without ever knowing they would intersect. Sometimes fairy tales don't need magic wands or pumpkin carriages. Sometimes they just need an act of kindness, a belief in possibilities, and the courage to let love change everything. The family portrait hung in the Bennett Tech lobby alongside the tire iron and glass slipper. Jack, Claire and Lucy grinning in front of a restored classic car, their faces reflecting in its polished surface. The plaque beneath it read, "Innovation begins with heart." 1 year after the wedding, they'd found their rhythm. Jack's self-diagnosing engine had revolutionized the industry, making vehicles safer and more accessible worldwide. Claire had expanded the company's mentorship program, creating opportunities for more unlikely dreamers. And Lucy, well, Lucy had just won the National Robotics Championship with a device that helped elderly people maintain their independence. Like the robots that helped Grandma Henderson with her new garden, she explained to reporters. Sometimes the best inventions come from wanting to help someone you love. The old neighborhood had changed too. Instead of demolishing the factory where Jack had worked, Bennett Tech transformed it into an innovation center, where former line workers now developed the next generation of automotive technology. Frank ran the training program, teaching others what Jack's mother had taught him, that understanding machines starts with understanding people. "Ready for the anniversary surprise?" Claire asked, finding Jack in his office. He was looking at the old photo of that rainy night, now paired with their wedding photo, the same spot, the same rain, courtesy of the drones. But this time they were both smiling into the camera, Lucy throwing holographic rose petals over them. "Should I be worried?" he smiled. "Last time you surprised me, it changed my whole life. Just bring Lucy to the plaza at lunch." He found them both there an hour later, standing beside a covered shape that was definitely car-sized. The plaza was filled with familiar faces. Their Bennett Tech family, old friends from the factory, Mrs. Henderson and her prize-winning petunias, replaced, as promised, with the expensive kind. "Remember how we first met?" Claire asked, gripping the cover. "As if I could forget." She pulled the sheet away to reveal a perfectly restored version of her old car, the one that had broken down that fateful night. But this one was different. Lucy bounced excitedly as she explained the modifications. "We added your engine, system, plus some special features." She pressed a button, and holographic butterflies emerged from the headlights. And look, another button transformed the hood into a display showing their entire story. From that first roadside meeting to today. "We call it the fairy tale edition," Claire said softly. "The first of a new line of cars that combine cutting-edge technology with magic," Jack finished, running his hand along the familiar curves of the vehicle that had brought them together. "Dad helped design it," Lucy announced proudly. "Before he died, he always said cars weren't just machines. They were vessels for people's dreams, carrying them to new possibilities." Claire slipped her hand into Jack's. "What do you think?" He looked at their reflection in the car's surface, not just their present selves, but echoes of who they'd been. The factory worker who stopped to help, the CEO who staged a breakdown to find someone real, the little girl who believed in magic and learned to build it herself. "I think," he said, pulling them both close, "that some stories are too good to end." Above them, through the glass and steel of the building they'd helped reshape, the afternoon. Sun caught the plaza's sculptures, the glass slipper, the tire iron, the new car, casting light in all directions, like possibilities, like hope, like magic. Lucy's robot assistant projected one last surprise onto the car's surface, a message written in her mother Sarah's handwriting, found in an old diary. "The best kind of love story